What's up, dogs? Today we're talking GoPro mounting techniques and specifically how to cement this thing to your helmet so that it never falls off. We'll also hit on what suction cup to use with a stationary camera angle. We'll jump right into mounting in a second, but if you're new here, this is episode 1 of Edit with Yosh, a playlist series in getting the most out of your GoPro footage. In episode 2, we'll cover frame rates, resolutions, and what camera selection to make after we get our GoPro mounted. Your GoPro mounting solutions are going to depend on what position you play and what camera you have. If you're a tendy, suctioning your camera to the glass makes a lot of sense, but if you're playing out like me, the helmet cam is probably the way to go. In episode 0, I showed why the Hero 8 is the best option for getting stabilized slow-mo clips when using your GoPro as a helmet cam. But don't let that stop you, you can start out with whatever you have. I actually started with the Hero LCD that I got used for about $75, just to see if I liked recording and editing. On the helmet, you're gonna have 2 likely spots to mount, those being either the very top of the helmet, or if the surface of your helmet allows, more of that front-facing portion. The spot you choose might affect what resolution and frame rate works best for you. If you mount on the front portion of the helmet like me and use the 16:9 aspect ratios, you're gonna split the difference between seeing the action in your stick handling and skates and what's ahead of you in the play. Setting your camera up like this allows you the most flexibility in using the GoPro frame rates and resolutions, but you might miss anything that happens below the bottom edge or above the top edge of the screen. If you choose to use the top mount, you'll have to angle your camera down more aggressively. With this setup, you'll miss less of your own stick handling and footwork, and with the 4:3 aspect ratio, you'll have more freedom to move your clips up and down within the traditional 16:9 widescreen format. The downside of recording in 4:3 is that you won't have access to all the GoPro frame rates, and you'll probably catch the edge of your helmet in your frame. I use the curved GoPro mounting plates, and once I find an angle that works best for me, I use a 2-part epoxy to really cement that mount down to the helmet. The included adhesive does a pretty good job with this mount, but inevitably it will pop off when hit, especially in colder environments. If you have the opportunity to try out multiple mount positions with just the adhesive before using the epoxy to stick it down forever, that's probably the best way to go about it. You mix equal parts of the 2 compounds, spread it on the helmet surface, and then can mount your adhesive plate. If you use enough, the mount is rarely gonna fall off unless you take a big impact. I've had this front mount secured to my helmet for over 2 years. Prior to that, I wasn't as generous with the epoxy on the top mount, and I did lose that in a corner scrum, but it's not like this flew off under normal skating. The epoxy takes 24 hours to set, so when you apply it to the surface of the helmet, make sure you only put the mount down on top of it while it cures. If you try and do this with the added weight of the GoPro, the mounting plate may slide around as the epoxy cures. If you go the stationary camera route and want to use a suction cup, I would recommend the official GoPro mount. At the time I was looking for reviews, it seemed like a lot of people were unhappy with cheaper suction cup options. On clean surfaces, this holds very strongly. On the hockey glass, you might need to take a towel and wipe off a small section to make sure it's not dirty, scuffed, or dusty. Try to find a clean section for the best seal. Suctioning the camera upside down also seemed to work better in my tests. The weight of the GoPro pulls directly down as opposed to pulling down and horizontally, which allows for a better hold. I will say that although editing 3 separate angles in my workflow was tedious and super time consuming, a stationary glass angle worked well as an establishing shot. I think showing that angle makes it easier to follow the action as opposed to a lot of my videos where I'm just bouncing between 2 camera angles back to back. I made sure to shoot in 4K on this stationary angle so that I could punch in and move the camera around on my 1080 timeline. Mounting on the glass obviously has some risk. The angle I just showed was safe as the GoPro is behind the glass along the boards and shooting through it. Not the best for image quality. Mounting above the net for a clean shot is ideal, but eventually your camera is going to get hit. They're pretty tough. This was Trent's, and it survived with seemingly no issues inside only the plastic housing. For my Hero 7 Black, I picked up this metal housing from Small Rig. It made me feel better about using the Hero 7 in rugged spots, but it adds considerable weight. You definitely wouldn't use this metal housing when attached to the top of the helmet. We'll dive deep into resolutions and frame rates in episode 2, and if you're interested in picking up a used GoPro, stick around. I'll be listing my Hero 7 and my Hero 8 shortly to consolidate my cameras in hopes of grabbing the Hero 9 when it comes out in the late fall.